It's 7 o'clock. I'd like to call the meeting to order. This is our regular meeting for April 9th, 2018 for the Board of Selectmen. So roll call, Cathy Tendridge.
Virginia San Pietro.
And George Percival.
We have Louisa Trakas with us tonight and Becky as our recording secretary. So our first item is, to approve our meeting minutes from March 26, 2018.
I'll make a motion to approve.
I'll second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion accepted to approve the meeting minutes from March 26, 2018. Item number 4 is old business. We have no old business to take care of tonight. So we're going to go into item number 5, new business. So item number 1 is to consider an act on appointing a member to the Inland Wetlands and Watercourse Commission. We had received a letter of interest from Joseph Campbell. So tonight, I would like a motion to appoint Joseph Campbell to the Inland Wetlands Commission, and that is a Republican position, and he would be appointed until January 4th, 2021.
I'll make that motion that we approve Joseph Campbell to the Plainfield Inland Wetlands Commission.
I'll second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion accepted to consider an act on appointing Joseph Campbell to the Inland Wetlands and Watercourse Commission until January 4th, 2021.
Is he here? Do you want to say anything to
No, I'm
us?
off. The letter to the commission will be fine. It's,
Okay. And thank you,
Yeah.
Joseph, for volunteering
Thank you.
and having an interest.
Yeah.
Item number 2 is to consider an act on appointing a member to the Ag Commission. We have a position open that's unaffiliated, and that appointment would be until January 17th, 2019, and that would be to replace Sylvia, and I don't know if I'm going to say her name right, Welleck. So we have a letter of interest from Sherry Harmon, which was an alternate already on the board, and she would like to become a full member. So I would need a motion to have Sherry go from an alternate to a full member.
I'll make that motion that we appoint Sherry Harmon to the Plainfield Agricultural Commission as a full member.
Yes.
And I'll second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried to appoint Sherry Harmon to a full board member to the Ag Commission until January 17th, 2019. Item number 3 is to consider an act on a resolution for leasing 2 police vehicles. So what that is the 2 police vehicles were approved in the budget already. What this is to do is just to approve the leasing of the 2 vehicles. And what our finance director did is she went out and found the best companies with the best rate for the leasing of the vehicles. So I would need a motion to accept that.
So did we go out to bid for them?
Yes, we did go out to bid, and that
And
was
those-
accepted. Oh my goodness.
What?
The bids were opened probably in November, I believe,
Okay.
December, for the bids on police vehicles. So we have courtesy Ford was $31,865. And then we had Putnam Chrysler Dodge Jeep for $27,326. So that was for a Charger. And Mike, you're here, so maybe you could,
Ford Explorer.
Ford Explorer.
That's correct.
And that comes up with a total of $59,191.
Yes, for both vehicles, totally done.
Okay, I'll make a motion that we approve the leasing of the 2 vehicles for the police department.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried to consider an act on a resolution for leasing the 2 police vehicles for a total of $59,191. So item number 4 is discussion with the Charter Revision Commission regarding the proper procedures and recommendations for revisions and amendments to the charter. So I would have the members who are here come up to the table if you want, so that we can go over.
Bring it, Chief.
have to bring it here.
So for everybody that doesn't know, for our charter commission members, we do have 2 absent tonight. Terry Sweeney was out of town, which she had told me originally she would be out of town for this first meeting. And then Lou is absent tonight, Lou Sawyer. So if everybody would like to introduce themselves.
Tom Sinkwitz.
Mary Butchers.
Mike Supernaut.
So what we have tonight, and Louisa Trakas is here, she's going to help go over the guidelines. We have a date. Now, these dates are not in stone. What's going to happen is the Charter Commission, you're going to take these dates and then you're going to fit them in to what works for you. But what we did is we did guidelines because the final has to be in to the state of Connecticut by September 26th. So in order to do that, there's set time frames and set times that when you have one meeting, you have so many days before you can have another one. And then there has to be 2 town hearings and there has to be a certain amount of days. So the guideline that we have is dates that you can review, and then as members, you're going to pick the dates that work best for you.
All right, so these dates are not really cut in stone, except
No.
for the meetings that we have to have,
And yes,
town meetings I'm talking about, yeah.
but even that, George, the dates are not,
Yeah,
it gives like from 4/10 to 4/12, so it needs to be within that week.
okay.
And Louisa, I don't know if you want to talk more about each date, what is expected of them, or if the members have any questions.
I could do a little review of the dates, just really, and just to answer George's question a little bit better. So this, like Cathy said, this is just a guideline. So once, tonight, the 3 of you probably should set a date for your first meeting. And we suggest that it's sometime, if possible, this week. If not, it would have to go till next week. At that meeting, you'll appoint officers, you'll approve a schedule of meetings, and Tom's familiar with that, and maybe the other 2 of you are too. So a schedule of meeting for a commission or a board has to be filed with the town clerk. Once it's filed, you can't have what is considered a regular meeting for 30 days. So your first meetings are going to be considered special, which I don't really see as a big problem. All it means is that the agenda has to be specific to what you're talking about. You can't add anything to the agenda. But really your agenda is, in the beginning at least, are basically just going to be discussion. So that's pretty broad to begin with. Once you get over the 30 days, once the schedule of meetings is filed with me, and then 30 days go by, after that they're all regular meetings, and that just means that if you wanted to add something to an agenda, you could. There is a little bit of a difference with agendas themselves, so a regular meeting agenda must be filed with the town clerk and may be filed on the town website. Doesn't have to be though, there's no requirement. Though it is our policy to put all agendas on the website, there is nothing that says it's required. But a special meeting agenda must be on the website. 24 hours in advance. So you have to make sure not only is it recorded in the town clerk's office, but it also has to be sent to Kyle. So that's really the basic difference between special and regular meetings. So you'll elect your officers, you'll create a schedule of meetings, and somebody will have to file that with the town clerk. According to statute, and I don't know if you all have this chapter 99, which is the charter, the statute on charters, it specifically states that in the beginning, before you start any work, I'm not exactly sure how it's worded, but you have to have a public hearing. So you have to keep in mind that you have to have 10-day notice for a public hearing. And so at your first meeting, you probably should find a date that will work for that first public hearing, which allows the public to come and discuss and give you recommendations or talk about it, ask questions, what have you. And then you have to have another public hearing during the time that you need. So you have to have 2 public hearings, but the first one is supposed to be before you actually start work on it. And then once you finalize your, what's called your draft report, that has to be filed with the town clerk, and then the town clerk gets it to the selectmen, and then the selectmen has to have a public hearing. So there's lots of, criteria for this, but so there are suggestions in here of how to go about getting to the end of the line. And then, if the Board of Selectmen has, agrees totally with it and approves it, then I have to go to the Secretary of State, which is what that 9/6 deadline is. In order to get, our goal is to get the questions on the November ballot, but to be able to get the questions on the November ballot, I have to go to the Secretary of State by the 6th with our proposed questions, and that has to be approved by them. And then I have to get the ballot ready, so these all have to be on the ballot. The ballots have to be ready, I want to say 31 days before the election, so that's like the beginning of October. So, and then if the Board of Selectmen has an issue with any of your suggestions, they can go back and say, no, I don't like this one, or I wish you would consider this one, or whatever, and then it would come back into your lap and we would go forward some more. So, this guideline is figuring everything's gonna work perfectly. Of course, it may not, but, we're gonna hope that it's gonna be pretty close to perfect. But we can talk a little bit more about that, we don't have to talk, unless you have specific questions tonight. You probably just wanna look this over and talk together about how you're gonna manage this.
Louisa?
Yeah.
If for some reason it doesn't go as quickly as that, we could have a special ballot, a special.
You can have a referendum.
A referendum, okay.
So
I know that costs money and all of that, but.
And I believe there's something in the statute that says it has to be, everything has to be done 16 months after the beginning, the commission was created, and I estimated that at July 26th of next year. So if by any chance we don't get it on the November ballot, yes, that is true. You could have a special referendum, and you could bring the questions.
But our goal is a November ballot.
That's the goal, because we're already spending the money on all the polling
Right.
places, and not only that, there is also a statute, and I don't know them all off my head, but they are all in this chapter 99, I don't know the exact wording, but there's a statute that says a certain percentage of the people have to vote. So if you've got a state election coming with a governor, you're gonna have a good turnout. If you have a special referendum and not enough people come, which has happened before, then nothing passes.
What about the town meeting, the special meeting that we have with the town first? We have to have a certain amount of people.
Public hearing. Public hearings, no. There is no criteria
So
of how many people
25
come.
minimum?
No, that's a town meeting.
Okay.
So the public hearing, there is no criteria for how many, of the, like what a quorum is, there's no quorum. Yeah, so you're good with the public hearing. But if you have a special referendum, you have to keep in mind, I want to say it's 10%, I could be wrong on that, but if you don't get that percentage, you're gonna have your referendum, you're gonna pay all your poll workers, and people are gonna come and vote, and maybe they'll vote yes on everything, and you didn't have enough, nothing passes.
Right.
So that's the only problem
Yeah.
with the special referendum.
That's a problem.
Yeah, that would be a problem,
Wow.
and it has been in the past.
So they have their work cut out.
They do.
Well,
They
I gotta
do.
commend you for being on this committee, really. I'll tell you.
Yeah.
Don't scare them
No,
away.
I'm not.
I'm scared, but I tell
this
you
is a
what.
big undertaking.
Yeah.
This is no little thing.
No, I mean, it is a kind of, and it's a short term, so you're trying to get a lot done in a short term. But there's, there's lots of statutes that will guide you, and we have gone to the town attorney. He has looked at this guideline and agreed that it's okay, it'll work. So if it can happen, that's great.
So realistically, tonight, we should come up during this meeting with a date for our next meeting while it's in this meeting. Okay.
Yeah, at
Just
least
so
a
we can
date.
set that date,
Yeah.
obviously, at this meeting.
Yeah.
Probably be proper.
Yeah.
Okay.
So then if you want me to, I'll go on with the recommendations. So Cathy and I have been working on this, and I don't have this to pass out to you, and I can always get you a copy. But do you all have a charter? Because if you do, you can look at it and tell me what you want to do. And I will swear you two in also.
And you're talking about the recommendations from the Board of Selectmen
Yes.
on what they would like change in the
At
charter?
least what they want you to look at.
Yeah,
Right, so
obviously.
if you want to mark it right in your charter book,
Have you
And-
all looked at that?
no, this,
Okay.
this is just the recommendation that we're giving them.
Yeah.
These are items that Louisa and I have sat and gone over. So now you and George and I will sit and go over all of this.
Okay.
And these are just recommendations. This is, we can't tell them what to do.
Right.
They can
right.
come back and be like,
But
no,
we're not positive all of us, the three of us will all agree on those. I mean, I think we probably would, but.
And then when you.
and tonight, when
Yeah.
we're going through it, this is part of the thing, is for you to understand what we're recommending.
Okay.
And this is all recommendations that have happened in the last few years, if I'm correct, that just basically failed to go to a referendum.
Many of these recommendations are from the 2012 Charter Revision Commission that they looked at and addressed, and then they didn't meet the criteria of the dates, and so they never got the questions on the ballot. So some of them are repeats, things that we've talked about before, and some are things that have come up since the last Charter Revision Commission. And yes, at now, if I think if the Board of Selectmen has any other ideas to add, you would add them tonight, and then at the first public hearing, anybody can come and add whatever thoughts they have. So in section 2-2, almost all the way down, it says, other than a town meeting regarding the annual budget, a quorum of 25 registered voters shall be required for a town meeting. That was instituted, I believe, in 2007, and with good reason. I think it was an effort to get more people to attend town meetings, but it really didn't work that way.
No.
And so the problem is it kind of ties the hands of the Board of Selectmen trying to pass policies and what have you. And, so it says in the absence of a quorum for 2 consecutive meetings called, then the question is acted upon by the Board of Selectmen. So what happens is you have a town meeting, you spend money to warn it, 10 people come, you can't have the meeting because there's no quorum, and so then you go home and you warn the meeting again and pay for an ad again, and you come back to a town meeting, and this time 15 people came, still not a quorum, and then it goes to a Board of Selectmen, and the Board of Selectmen, acts on whatever it is. But it really kind of ties the hands of the Board of
Yeah,
Selectmen.
well, in the past, we had to go around the the town hall and ask the spouses and the employees to come to a meeting to get 25, because you can never, ever get 25 people in the community to come.
And my feeling towards that is,
Sad.
if you have a meeting, whether it be 10 people that show up or 5 people, those 5 or 10 people are interested in that meeting. That's the reason why they're there.
That's why they're
And
there.
their vote should count.
Absolutely.
So to have to start with 25 people and go to one meeting and then to go to another meeting, and then it still falls back in the Board of Selectmen, there's a lot of time wasted, there's a lot of money wasted, and it just, the intention was good, but it has not
Doesn't
worked.
work.
So that's the first thing we wanted you to look at.
So are you just making a suggestion that there should only be so many people? Is that what you're telling us here?
Well, I think the suggestion probably is to take out the idea that there has to be a quorum at all. That if a town meeting is held,
Okay.
and it just like it used to be before this was instituted, whoever is there, and
Right.
they vote. Section 2-3, the annual town meetings. There's a section of our charter that says, let's see if I have this right. This is about the reports, I believe, that
To do a town report at the annual meeting.
to do a town
It's never
report.
been done.
And it says in section B, prior to the annual meeting, the Board of Finance shall have prepared, published, and distributed a town report. That is in addition to what a statute, so there's a statute 7-344, and I actually wrote copies so that you could see it, and you can keep this copy. So basically, if I'm understanding this correctly, 7-344 says that, that copies of the budget basically have to be available at the town budget meeting. But it doesn't say it has to be prepared, published, and distributed as a town report. We haven't had a town report since 2003. So that was my suggestion, and I think Cathy agrees, is that we could just delete that requirement to have a town report. If it's not gonna be done, why is it in the charter? I mean, honestly, it hasn't been for 15 years. So, we still would have to follow statute, and we would still have to have the budget report available for the people, but it wouldn't have to be in a printed book form,
Right.
like a town report, quote unquote. But again, up to you, just something to look at. And if it's in there, I would like to see it happen. That's the only thing. If you're gonna keep it in there, then I think the Board of Finance is gonna have to start doing it, if you don't take it out. Section 2-4, annual town budget referendum. In section A, it talks about the budget meeting being held on the third Monday in May, and maybe Cathy might want to mention something about this.
So my thought process was to try and keep it closer to the state budget. After talking to the finance director, the only thing we could do is change that by 2 weeks. Because what would happen is, if our budget is not prepared, the finance director uses that for the tax rate, and we would end up having to send out a supplemental tax bill. So I'm not really sure how important it is to change that date, because it can only be changed by a couple of weeks. I don't know if it would really be beneficial. My original thought was it would give us more time, which would be nice, but then if we still needed more time, it's not really going to matter, because we have to have it within that 2 weeks after that. So that was one of my thoughts originally, was to change that. And honestly, if we cannot fit that on, it's not one of the most important things to add on for a charter change.
Did that impact us because of the lack of a state budget?
It did, and that was what made me think that maybe we should change that so our dates are more in with the state. But after talking to the finance director and her explaining to me, we really need our numbers in by a certain date. It doesn't matter whether we have our information from the state or not.
Because we need to be able to go out and collect taxes.
And buying us 2 weeks is not gonna change anything.
Yeah, it's not
No,
really
two
going
weeks.
to
No,
change.
and you don't wanna just put so many things on the ballot where you're
Right.
just confusing
So
people.
to me, this is the least important thing to really consider.
Okay, so then the next one, is also under section 2-4, and it's, subsection C. And this is, this has come up many, many times, and actually was one of the questions on the 2012 Charter Revision Commission, originally their plan, was to change it so that instead of the school budget and the town budget being linked, so that if one fails, the other fails, that we separate that so that if one passes, it
It stays
passes,
it
whether or
passes.
not the other fails or
That's a
not.
very good idea.
So that was something that has been discussed in length for many years, and they were going to try to put that question on.
What about capital? Is capital gonna stand alone, or you just want those two? Or do you want all three to stand alone, capital, school, and government?
Right now, the question goes out as 3 separate questions.
Right,
And I
right.
think, if my understanding is correct, that right now, if the capital budget passes, it passes already. It's not linked. The
Oh, it's
capital
not.
improvement thing is not linked to the other two. No, we don't go back, like if the budget fails, we don't go back with the capital improvement plan if it passed.
Okay?
Okay, so I believe it's already separate.
That's a very good idea.
It's been discussed a lot. Okay, so then the next section is 2-7, the petition to referendum. So this is probably one of the most important things for you to consider, because this was the issue we had last year when a group wanted to petition for a referendum for the budget, and their petition pages were not accepted. And I did bring just one copy though of the town attorney's opinion on that. So basically what happened is they felt like 2-7 was applicable to the budget process. And the town stand was that 2-4 is the budget process, and that can't be touched. That's the process of the budget, and 2-7 is for everything else. And the attorney, I just highlighted one little portion of the attorney's opinion. He said, when all the provisions of the charter are read together, it is obvious that its intent is for the budget process to be separate and distinct from the process followed for other town meetings. So this 2-7 would be appropriate for other items, just not the budget. And so, our suggestion is maybe, I mean, you can discuss it obviously, but maybe we could just add somewhere at the bottom, a subsection F or whatever, that says this does not apply to the budget process, 2-4. Just to make it clear, that was.
Oh, that would make it clear, but it's not necessarily to be in there because the attorney already says it's not.
But the attorney recommended that we make some changes.
okay.
to
It's
our
an opinion, you can always go after an opinion or appeal an opinion. We just wanna make it concrete.
Clear. And he did tell me that when we went to charter revision, we should change the words and make it clear.
Good.
Now, how about just, so we don't, going back to 2-4B, now, wasn't that really an issue of the lawsuit that
It
should
wa-
be clarified
It
as well?
became, yeah, it became an issue of the word all was removed, and, yeah, for whoever doesn't understand what happened. So, the former finance director, and he had asked, at the time, he had thought that there was a grammatical error in section 2-4B, and so he corrected it. When he brought the charter, or sent the charter to be reprinted with the new charter changes, he made a note that he was making a grammatical correction, and he took out the word all when it says all subsequent meetings or
Yeah,
whatever. It became an issue, but it wasn't really part of the problem. The real problem was that their petition pages weren't accepted, but they did keep going back and forth with that word. And so what the opinion of the attorney and because we went back in the books, and when we voted for that charter revision change, and I want to say that was in 2004 possibly, that grammatical change was not approved by the people. So it was not a question on the ballot, should we change this? And so therefore, his stance, the attorney's stance, is that that should never have been changed in print. And so what he suggested we do, and we did, and that's why you'll see some of these charters with the little circle on the front, we replaced the language of section B with the language that was in the 1992 charter.
I don't have that.
Oh, you might have an old one, so I will get you a new one.
Okay.
Okay, I have a sticker on the front that says section 2-4B has been changed.
Oh,
It wasn't changed, it was what it was
Was.
before it went to print.
Okay.
And so we just reverted back to the language the people had approved, and that's what we stuck in those books. So when we finish this charter revision and we go to print, unless you make any changes to 2-4B, we're just
It'll
gonna make
revert back to
sure
what it-
it'll revert back to the last time the
Yeah.
public voted.
That's good.
okay, all right. Thank
We don't
you.
feel like that really needs to
No.
be changed, but you can look at that for sure if you wanted to. So moving on to 3-4, often voting districts. The first thing is that this says there shall continue to be 4 voting districts. And actually, there are 5 voting districts in Plainfield because Plainfield is split between 44 and 45th. So there's 5 districts, not 4 districts. 4 polling places, but 5 polling districts. And
Voting districts.
voting districts, so
Okay.
Plainfield has 2,
Yeah.
and then we have most of Central Village and
All
Morgan,
right,
so
so
there's
that's
5 districts.
5
When you come-
voting districts.
5 voting districts. When you come into the Plainfield Town Hall to vote, if you live in the village of Plainfield, you are separated, District 44 and
Well-
45, Assembly District,
Yeah.
44 and 45, so that makes another voting district. So there's really 5. And if you talk to the registrars, they will tell you that they would like to see less. They would like us to combine voting districts. No, I apologize. They would like us to combine voting places, so that people are voting in maybe 2 places or 1 place. They might come to your public hearing and talk to you about that, but I just wanted to point that out to you. That has been discussed in length in the past several years, trying to save money.
Yeah.
Right,
You know,
yeah.
there's,
Yeah,
all of the elections are by statute, obviously, and statute requires you to have so many counters and so many checkers and so many moderators, and they could save a lot of money if we
Combined.
combined the number of
Sounds
polling
like a good
places.
idea.
Yeah. And that would actually combine, so we're still split, the assembly district is still going to be split, that's my state, so. But like Cathy said when we were talking about it, it's kind of good for us to have 2 assembly districts, because then we have 2 reps, you know, so we have 2
Yeah.
separate representatives, and not everybody does, right? And they're all supposed to be working for us, so that's a good thing. Section 4-3, terms in office. So I'm gonna point that out, and if you look down to section 4-4 subsection E, they're kind of the same thing and the same issue, and again, whether or not you wanna go into this, I'm not sure. But, section 4-3 says, the terms of office of all elected officers, board members, and commission members shall commence on the 2nd Tuesday following their election, and they shall hold office until their successors have been elected and qualified. And then section 4-4E says very similar thing, all appointees to a vacancy in an elective office shall serve until a successor elected at a special election or at the next regular town election qualifies. That word qualified came up a couple times this year when we had some openings. So some people were elected and resigned, opened up some vacancies. And when our town attorney looked at this, he's questioning the fact that it says that they have to hold office until somebody else is qualified, which would mean that if nobody ran for the position on the ballot, if an opening for a 2-year vacancy came onto the ballot and nobody ran for it, his opinion was that then nobody qualified to take over, and so that person would have to stay. So in other words, somebody is appointed to take somebody else's place that resigned, and according to our charter, they get appointed till the next election day. So election day was 11/7. And that opened up another 2-year vacancy. So they are done on 11/7, but there's still a little bit left to that original term, and so it goes on the ballot for a 2-year vacancy. He's saying that this means that if nobody runs, that person who was appointed till election day continues, because there's no qualified person. We've never done that. And so we had quite a discussion with the town attorney, and he thinks we need to clarify that language. So, not to be confusing, the next one is even worse. And I would always answer your questions after tonight if you still are confused about it, because I probably am not always explaining it very well, but it's confusing. Section 4-4C.
Can I just ask him a question?
Yeah.
When the attorney talked about that, he talked about the language and it being confusing, did he give us language to clarify that we could actually use?
No, but he said if we wanted to make changes, we could go back to him and he would give us some
It
language.
would cost some money though.
Yeah.
I was trying to circle it back.
No.
He said that he would gladly help us if we need help with the words.
Can you look at the other towns' charters to see what they say?
I'm sure.
Just to see what
Yeah, I mean,
says
that
in
would
their
be,
things as a
that would be
reference?
something we might want to check into, what
Yeah.
other towns.
I think I saved the one from Groton that was in the paper. I cut it out and saved it, so I'm free.
Good.
Yeah, I'm sure you could probably request, or maybe online, you know, on their
Yeah.
websites, they probably have their
Yeah.
charter. And you could probably download it and print it and take a look.
Sorry.
That's okay. So section 4-4, more vacancies, subsection C. Any vacancy in any other elective town office except for the first selectman, because of course that's always something different, from whatever cause arising, shall be filled by the Board of Selectmen for the unexpired portion of the term or until the next town election, whichever is sooner. And that's what I just said. We always appoint to the next election day, because the next election day is always sooner, okay? So, and having said that, this is the problem I have. They tried to fix this in 2012. It didn't work. It might not work this time either, and you might not even want to deal with it. But what that means is, so again, you have a position, somebody resigns, it opens up a vacancy. If it's a 6-year term and somebody gets elected November of 2019 and they resign in December of 2007, so it starts, I apologize, it starts in November of 2017, we just had an election, it's a 6-year term. They resign right after the election. That was a 6-year term, so it's good until whatever that brings us to, 2021. From 19 to a 6-year term.
23?
23, okay? But our charter says that person who takes the place of the person who resigned doesn't go for the 6 years. We don't appoint them for the 6 years. We appoint them until the next election day. That means 2019. Now in 2019, that's a 4-year vacancy, and it goes on the ballot as a 4-year vacancy. And with a vacancy position, the new person starts on election day, so perfect. The replacement is appointed by the Board of Selectmen until the next election day, and the vacancy position begins on election day, so that's perfect. When it's not perfect is something like what happened with you.
Right.
So when there is a full position on the ballot, it starts 2 weeks after Election Day. So and I'll use Virginia if she doesn't mind as an example. Virginia was appointed to take Bert's place. That was a 2-year term. So she was appointed till November 7th, 2017. When that position went on the ballot, it wasn't a vacancy position, it was a 2-year term position, so it started on the 17th, but she ended on the 7th. So there was a 2-week period that there was no third selectman really, because her term ended before her term began. And so, that, and it could have been somebody else though, it could have been somebody else who won, and she would have ended on the 7th, and the new person would come in on the 17th, or whatever the dates were, and there was a 14-day gap. So we're trying to figure out a way to fill that gap. The Secretary of State's office suggested years ago that we make a change to that, but it's hard to decide how to word that, so that's gonna be up to you. And like I said to Cathy, maybe we just have to leave it alone and let what happened this year happen. So what did happen, just to make it clear, the Board of Selectmen at that time in
Appointed for 2
November
weeks.
appointed her for 2 weeks.
That would be the easiest way out, unless you can come up with language.
Right.
And what's hard about coming up with the language is coming up with the language that you can put on a ballot to make somebody understand that mouthful.
Right.
You know,
I'm not gonna be standing there telling people why to put this on the
I just think we ought to leave that alone and just appoint for that 2-week period, that's all.
That's something you guys can talk about, So that is probably the most difficult thing you're gonna look at. Next things are pretty easy. Chapter 7, appointed boards. This came up last time too, and they were gonna put it on a 2012 question to disband the jury committee and the medical center board of directors, because I guess that's not effective anymore anyway. So we're asking you to consider disbanding, or just deleting that within the charter. And the next section, 8-2, town council. That says that the Board of Selectmen shall appoint by resolution adopted at a meeting to be held not later than January 15th, a town council, who shall serve for a term of 1 year.
What was that again?
8-2, I'm sorry.
I'm sorry.
No, I'm not at the best. So 8-2 says the Board of Selectmen has to appoint council by January 15th, and Cathy feels like that's not really enough time. That the new person is just coming in at the end of November and really has just been in office for a little over a month. And maybe it's not quite enough time to decide who to appoint.
if you want, because you have to meet with all the council that's already there, really decide if each one of those attorneys are who you feel can do the job at the best. And I just think, when you first come into office, you figure it's November 21st, or that's what it was when I came into office. It doesn't leave you a lot of time to not only get into office and familiarize yourself with the town hall and the staff here, but now you have to bring in town council. And to me, that's a really important part. You want to make sure that who you have is going to do the best job for you. So I think that it doesn't really give you enough time to meet with them.
Are you suggesting a time?
You still have to go out for bids and get RFPs
Right.
from them, and then maybe even interview them. That's the big problem.
Yeah.
I don't think we do go out to bid though, quite honestly. We don't go out to bid.
Well, we've had the same council.
Well, if you wanted to go with the new, you want to know what their hourly rate and everything is and what they're gonna provide you for, to
Right.
get something for an RFP.
You could, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to,
No?
I just wanted to say I don't think that has happened, but maybe like Cathy says, because the same council has been.
And what's also difficult about that is you have to remember you have the 2 holidays in there, so it's
Right.
already shortened your time that you're in office to really do a lot.
So do you keep the town council that?
That you have, yes, until you choose new. Mhm.
You could maybe put something in there that would be a little more clear about what the town council's term would be, so that it would go to February or March or what have you, instead of, you know, maybe it could go March to March or.
And that's what I'm thinking, you would want to go at least till the end of February, beginning of March, because then that gives you another full month to really be able to choose and meet with different council. I mean, you know, we have different council for different things. We have our labor law, we have our land, so you wanna make sure who you get is the best person for the job. And it just does not leave you a lot of time to do that.
And then, this is last, but I actually remembered one other thing that we forgot to put on here, or I forgot to put on here. 9-1, the only thing we wanted you to look at with that is that it says all elected boards and commissions shall annually, between 2 and 4 weeks after the November election, choose a chairman, vice chairman, and a secretary after swearing in newly elected members. Most of the boards and commissions I've spoken to who do this, the secretary has no job, has no duties, because the town provides a recording secretary and pays for a recording secretary. There is very few commissions, though I know the Ag Commission does not have a town recording secretary and does their own, but what we want to make sure that is clear to you is that there are statutes, freedom of information statutes that you have to follow. And if you have a volunteer, not to say the volunteers aren't going to do their job, but if you have a volunteer that doesn't file an agenda on time or doesn't file minutes on time, it's kind of hard to control that. When you have a recording secretary that the town provides, they're usually employees of the town and they're here all the time, so it makes it a little easier for them. So we're just thinking, maybe we don't need a secretary.
So delete, remove secretary in 918?
Yeah, and just have chairman and vice chairman. And that's, just keep in mind, that's elected boards we're talking about. And all elected boards have recording secretaries that the town provides. And the one thing, Cathy, I totally forgot about, and you just reminded me when you said something, we wanted to change that annual town meeting, and I don't remember what section that is. There is a section about the annual town meeting, which, not the budget meeting, the annual town meeting. And it says that it's like, what is it, the third Monday in November or something?
So it's section 2-3A. The annual town meeting shall be held the third Monday in November at such hour and place as the Board of Selectmen shall determine to accept reports on the prior fiscal year from town officials, including the town auditor, and for the transaction of business proper to come before such meeting. So I can tell you that this did not happen with me being newly elected, because first of all, this would have been like the day after I came into office. In order to have this meeting, it would have had to been posted, how many days prior?
Well, it's a town meeting, it's 5 days?
Yeah, I think so.
So it would have had to been posted by the prior selectman, the one leaving, and for me to come in, or anybody to come in and have one day, how do you go to an annual town meeting? So when I was reading the charter, I'm like, well, this didn't happen. So in thinking about it sensibly, it really is pretty much impossible to happen at that time with a newly elected official coming in.
We have, I looked back in the books, and there have been some,
It's been a while though.
Not on a regular basis, I guess.
And I'm not saying there shouldn't be an annual town meeting. What I'm saying, it should not be this November.
Yeah.
Maybe move it later.
Yeah.
But I thought we already discussed this, and we talked about obviously deleting that section.
You're
And then-
talking about budget, totally different.
Yeah.
Annual
Yes.
budget
Right.
meeting versus annual town meeting, it's separate. Did you say 2-3, Mike?
Yeah,
Yes.
2-3, section A.
Annual town
We talked
meeting.
about the,
Okay.
Right, the distribution of the report. 'cause I forgot about that, to add that in there, so yeah, she's just thinking the third Monday in November is not a good idea. The other one, also the budget, is 2-4A that says, the third Monday in May is the annual town budget meeting, but two separate annual town meetings. So I think that is all our suggestions for you. And now we can go into the rest of it.
Kathy, did you want to speak about section 10 tonight?
So section 10.
10, 2G. Did you want to talk about that tonight, or you want to review that some more?
I think that needs to be reviewed a little bit more, George. And
Okay.
that may be something that is added on.
Yeah, okay, all right.
So just if you
I just found
want
that
to be
today again.
aware of section 10-2,
Yeah, Section
item
G.
G, you may want to read
page
that.
19, yeah.
Mhm. And just see how you feel about that. There's, if possibly, should be addressed.
Yeah, absolutely, I think we have to address that.
So then the only other thing that, so if we kept every item that's on here, and then the one that I added, section 2-3A, and then the one that George just spoke about, that's 14 items to put on the ballot. So,
There's a lot.
and Louisa, maybe you can talk, you have more knowledge on this. On the ballot, there is only so much room on the ballot for all the people, and again, it's a state, so there are 11, am I correct, Louisa?
11 offices, so the first 11 boxes, of course, will be, and actually the governor and lieutenant governor might take up 2 boxes, so that's 12 boxes, and there's only 17, or columns, you might say, so there's only 17 columns on the front page of the ballot, and that's if we extend the ballot to a 17-inch ballot, which is big, we've done it before, but it's a long ballot, so you've got 17 inches, but 17-inch ballot with 17 blocks, which you will only have probably 5 or 6 blocks available, and each question is gonna take at least 2 blocks. So you're not gonna fit a question in a 1-inch or a little over an inch block. So you're gonna have to use 2 blocks for each question, basically. That's the average that you would use. So you're going to have to go on the back, and that's just what you're gonna have to do. But I was talking to the printer today, the ballot printer, who's, done our ballots for years, and, he said probably if you could limit it to 10 questions, that's doable, but once you get past 10, it's very difficult. We did have a ballot with 14 questions in 2007, but it's difficult, and the font has to be small, and it gets cumbersome, and you don't know if people are gonna continue to answer questions when they're getting kind of tired of it, and, so just, his suggestion is to prioritize and try to keep it to 10 at the most. So you're not gonna take every one of our suggestions, you're gonna look it over and decide, what the best.
Well, let me ask this question then. If we're gonna have the Charter Revision Commission go over the charter, and we're only gonna limit them to 10 changes, that's foolish.
Well,
I think it's foolish.
Last time,
Because then we would have to go
2012
all over again and change the charter again in the next coming election. So, just to consider, maybe a separate referendum, I don't know. I know what referendums cost money, but if you're gonna do it one time.
But I can tell you right now, George, like we had said tonight, there's a couple on here that probably don't even need to be addressed,
Okay.
like the
All right,
third Monday in May.
I just wanted to mention that. I mean, if we're gonna revise it, let's revise it.
Mhm. And these are only suggestions, so,
That's our problem with the referendum, is getting the count.
Yeah, getting people.
Yeah, no, I understand that.
Yeah.
But who's gonna make the decision what counts and what doesn't? That's the thing. What's more important? Like Kathy just said, some of the things won't have to go on, don't get me wrong. But who's gonna make the decision?
The charter revision.
No, I understand that, somebody's gonna have to make the decision, what's more important to change and not change. That's all I'm saying.
Well,
But if you have a referendum just for that, you may not get the people out in
Oh,
here.
I just thought of, that was just a suggestion I threw on there. All I'm concerned with is if we're gonna change this, let's change it. And let's not change it twice. I mean, go back some other time.
so by statute, there is a time period that you have to go back. I think it's every 5 years. Is it every 5?
Yeah.
That you have to go back to look at your charter
No,
again. You
I-
don't have to put questions on the ballot, but you have to at least look at it.
And have we done that? No.
No,
No.
Not always,
Yeah.
no. I mean, we did it in 2004, we did it in 2007, well, then we
In
did it
12,
in
you can count,
2012.
we looked at it, it's just
Right.
we didn't take anything
Yeah,
to
so
the
that
ballot.
was 5 years, so I guess.
like I said, all I'm concerned with, let's
I know.
revise it, let's revise it.
No, I understand, but I just wanted to point out that in 2012, they were gonna put 5 questions on the ballot. They had approved 5 questions, which is very doable.
Yeah.
So, I mean, and again, the charter revision is gonna come up with a draft, and they're gonna give it to the selectmen, and the selectmen is either gonna approve it or deny it, and if
Okay.
it's
All right,
denied,
then,
goes back to them.
so it goes back, all right, so it goes back and forth, all right,
Mhm.
okay.
Until the board of selectmen.
That's the good.
So, I mean, there's gonna be a lot of communication, I'm sure. But before I finish, Kathy, do you mind if I swear in Tom and Mike as the next one? Just so that way when you get to your meeting, you'll be all set. So if you don't mind raising your right hand and I'll do it together. Do you both solemnly swear that you will faithfully discharge according to law your duties as members of the Charter Revision Commission to the best of your ability, so help you God?
I do. Approved, okay?
Go ahead.
I have another question.
Sure.
Okay.
So, I know I have one of you from Board of Finance, but you might want to update that. And just keep in mind, both of you, that any of the information you give me as contact information is open to the public by freedom of information, so don't give me anything you don't want people to have, let's put it out, anything personal.
So is there any other discussion from any of the members or anybody regarding the charter revision?
No,
Do they want to
just
set their
setting
first
up a
meeting?
Right.
Yeah.
Set up.
And you said we could do it this week. right?
That's what our next recommendation is for the Board of Finance. We'll all be together for the Board of Finance, probably meeting, do it at 5:30 on that Wednesday.
Yeah.
So a special meeting, Wednesday, 5:30 for
This
the Board of
Wednesday?
Finance. Yes. And then who's gonna notice Louisa, and then who's gonna notice Cal, so because of the special meeting scheduled on the town website.
If you want me to, I could create an agenda tomorrow and post it at my office if you'd like me to.
And would,
And then I will send it to Kyle.
and you'll notice Kyle?
Mhm.
That'd be perfect.
Is that fine? Okay, so
That's
is
this
that
week.
for 11?
Yeah.
But the
Yeah,
11th,
4/11.
At 5:30 PM
that's correct,
here at the town hall.
correct.
Yeah.
Is that okay?
Yep, that's fine.
And then, we'll tell, Lou, and again, Terry won't be able to come because she's out of town, but I know that she's, going to be very involved once she gets back. We knew that ahead of time.
So if there's no other discussion or questions, we'll move on to item 6 for other. We don't have any other business for tonight. And then we will move on to public comment. So if anybody has any comments or questions regarding tonight, please feel free for any comments, questions. No public comment, questions? Okay,
Then I'll make a motion, we adjourn.
I'll second it.
all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion accepted to adjourn at 8 PM.
Wow, this is a meeting, this is one of our longer meetings. We're usually not here this,